Welcome back to another episode of Up in My Business. Today we're talking all things Squarespace. I'm going to go through why I chose to be a Squarespace exclusive designer over other platforms and also why I switched off of Wix. And I am so excited to talk about all the great features of Squarespace, but also what you should not use Squarespace for. Welcome to the Up in My Business podcast with me, Lex Lancaster, where you'll get an inside look at all things tech, business, and my life as a physical therapist turned digital operations expert. You'll hear all about my lessons as a business owner, the ins and outs of tech for your business, and more. From SEO, websites, and email marketing to automations, launches, and copywriting, I've got you. I'm so excited you're here. Let's dive in. Let's do this. We're going to talk all about Squarespace, why I choose Squarespace over other website builders, and when wouldn't you want to use Squarespace. I just want to let you know I used to only design websites on Wix. Some people know this. Some people actually worked with me when I was on Wix solely. And in 2020, I believe, maybe it was 2019, I had been talking to Shantae and she said, you should check out Squarespace instead of Wix. Definitely didn't want to switch because learning a new system is never really fun, but I ended up building my website on Squarespace and I never looked back. I saved so much time in design work, and on Wix, I just had to do everything twice. And honest to God, I wasted so much time designing sites. And the level of customization that I wanted just was not there. It was not great for SEO. Wix just did not do the job. So for me specifically, I know people love Wix. I know there are people here who genuinely do have a great experience over there. So if you're there and you love it, cool, stay. Like, by all means, I'm not going to be, the person who makes you switch over to Squarespace, but I have not regretted my decision to move over to Squarespace. So let's talk about the features of Squarespace that I truly love and I truly believe will benefit you as a business owner, especially as someone who may or may not be good at technology. So Squarespace is super user-friendly. If you've never been on Squarespace, or maybe you have been on Squarespace, you know that it is user-friendly. You can be someone who is not good at technology, and anything that you want to do on the site is pretty self-explanatory. You click, you type. You want to move a box around, you just drag and drop it around the site. You want to put a different box on the page, you click the plus button and add a page. It's one of those things where I actually relate it to an iPhone. So if you have an iPhone versus a Droid, or if you have a Droid versus an iPhone, when you look at an iPhone, if you want to go to the messages, you click messages. If you're on a Droid, it always feels like you're, in Narnia searching for a needle in a haystack to find an app. It's not as intuitive. It just isn't. iPhones are much more intuitive, and Squarespace is much more intuitive as well. For me, that is super important for everyone I work with, because I never want someone to feel like they need to hire someone every single time they need to make a change on their website. That totally puts you in a position to always be on the hook to, one, pay someone, and two, be waiting around for someone. There are things that happen on your website, whether your prices change or a clinician leaves or you add a service. It's just a great thing to be able to do something with your website if you need to in a pinch. Now, there are going to be people who tell me, I don't wanna. Cool, then don't. But I always want people to have the option, and I do think it is a requirement to be able to fix something if it breaks. And by that, I just mean, if you need to fix something on your website because something is no longer right, if a piece of copy or text on your website needs to be changed, you should be able to do that without having to wait 2, 3, 4 weeks and pay a bunch of money. If you don't want to, then just hire someone and wait to have it changed. But the user-friendliness of Squarespace has always been a huge draw, and it is what draws me to use it for my people. Because like I said, I never want someone to be done with me, if you will, once we finish their website and feel like they have to hire me every single time they need to make a change. And, people will come to me and say, I'm on a monthly retainer fee for $400, $500, and I don't know what they do. It's just essentially a retainer where they do nothing. And if something breaks on my site, because it's usually a WordPress site, if something breaks, then I can hire them, quote unquote, to have them fix it. And, you don't need that with Squarespace. And we're going to talk more about that in a minute, but you don't need that. And I don't like people to work with me and then expect that they're going to be on the hook forever and ever on a retainer. So User friendliness is key. It is number one. I wanted to say that first for a reason. It is just the best in that respect. And number two, this one goes into a little bit more depth and tech-wise, if you will, but there is built-in security and SEO settings within Squarespace that you don't have elsewhere. So I do a lot of SEO work. The SEO settings, the SEO ability that Squarespace has is absolutely fantastic. If you search on Google, there are people out there who will tell you that Squarespace is not good for SEO, and that's bullshit. So, if you're new here, I definitely swear on my podcast, so it's bullshit. SEO settings on Squarespace, it's just as great as anywhere else. You can rank number one, you can rank number two, you can rank number three by having a Squarespace website. So if you're ever told that SEO is bad on Squarespace, that's a poor piece of advice. So please don't listen. Squarespace has a lot of SEO settings built in that allow your website to be inherently optimized. Now, don't get that wrong for SEO optimization work that you have to do on top of that, but in the back end, in the coding aspect of the website, the stuff that you don't necessarily ever want to touch, that is all worked out for you the way that Squarespace has coded their stuff. So such a beautiful thing to have, and you don't need to get into coding in order to do SEO stuff. Amazing. Also plays into that user friendliness that I just talked about. There's also built-in security within Squarespace. So when you're on a platform, a different platform, specifically I've seen this a lot with WordPress, you have to, one, have a separate security certificate for your domain, which costs extra money. But the big thing is that with WordPress, you have to add a bunch of plugins onto your website, okay, in order to make things work on it. So if you want a specific type of block, you have to add a plugin. That plugin is usually developed by a random person who is good at coding, and then you add that to your site. WordPress is what they call an open source platform. So with that, if I was good at creating coded plugins, I could create one, and then you can download my plugin and put it on your website. The problem is that plugins create loopholes for people to then hack into your website and get into it. So that's why WordPress does need a lot more security and maintenance and just someone watching over your website than any other website builder. So inherently, it's going to be more expensive across time. Like, you're going to spend more money because you should be paying someone to monitor your site and make sure no one's hacking into your stuff. With Squarespace, essentially what you're going to see on the website and what you have as far as plugins, etc. There are no plugins, but blocks in order to add on your website and make things happen. That's what you get. You don't have to add plugins onto the site in order to make things work. So it closes that loop. It's a closed loop system. So it's a closed source, if you will, platform. So the only people who can get into your site, if you don't need plugins on there, and it's not random developers creating these plugins, the only people who can get on your site are you and then Squarespace, if you have a team member come check out your site or whatever, and then anyone that you add as an admin. So I love that about Squarespace because I know that my website is much more secure and I don't need to do any extra steps, if you will, in order to keep people out, because the plugins are a necessity on WordPress. It's not like you can just nix the plugins and call it a day. Like, it's a necessity. So knowing that I don't need to do that on Squarespace and my clients don't need to do that on Squarespace is incredible. It also integrates, so Squarespace also integrates well with scheduling and email marketing. So scheduling software, Squarespace scheduling, or it used to be called Acuity scheduling, integrates perfectly. I won't go too deep into that because I'm going to talk all about Squarespace scheduling in a later episode, but Squarespace scheduling integrates perfectly because it's owned by Squarespace. So Squarespace scheduling / Acuity integrates perfectly. Email marketing, ConvertKit, also integrates seamlessly, completely seamlessly. I love having the ConvertKit integration within the Squarespace website, and it could not be better, honestly. So I think that's very highly valuable. You don't want people to have to go to an external source to subscribe to your list. Everything is embeddable and placeable right inside your Squarespace website if you have a ConvertKit mailing account. And that's email marketing once again. So the other benefit with ConvertKit email marketing is that it does integrate with Squarespace e-commerce. So if you're selling things on your website, you can also hook those two up. So shameless plug, there's a course on my website about how to do that because it is kind of difficult. So if you take a look at that course, you can obviously connect them if you're not doing that already. But I love that it integrates with those things seamlessly, and I don't need to use a middleman. And by a middleman, what I mean is something like Zapier or Zapier, however you say that. I think it's Zapier because it's Zaps. Anyway, Zapier is a integration platform that connects software together. So if something happens on X software, it then causes something to happen on the next piece of software. And using that, you're obviously taking a risk because if that software breaks, then your integration doesn't work. So that's something that I don't like to rely on. With the automatic integration and seamless integration of Squarespace scheduling /Acuity and ConvertKit, I don't need to worry about that with my website. So I know that it integrates without that middleman, and that is super important to me because it saves me money, and it also saves me in anxiety when I have a launch or something like that. And if that integration were to break, I would then not get any of the data that I need. Or triggers would not happen, and that would be terrible because that means more manual work on my end. Next, we're going to talk about customization. So Squarespace is fully customizable. You can do a lot of different things on Squarespace with photos and text and drop-down menus and clickable open things that pop up and you have a bio, like all the things that can happen on Squarespace. It's super customizable, and I love it for that because, like I said, it's easy, one, but two, it's nice that you're not beholden to the site layouts that they have. You can change everything up as much as you want. It's also very affordable. So we talked about cost a little bit when it comes to user friendliness, right? You don't have to always hire someone. But in addition, it's not expensive per year. So Squarespace per year, the business plan, which I do recommend, don't be on the personal plan, the business plan, and then you have Commerce Basic and Commerce Advanced. The Commerce Advanced are my e-commerce people. If you're selling stuff on your website, you have to be on e-commerce Advanced because that's how you connect it to ConvertKit. So it just is what it is. With business, the business plan, it's only $276 every year, not a month. So, and that's it. And then if you pay for your domain, that's between like $10 and $20 a year. And then you don't need to buy an extra security certificate because once again, it's built into Squarespace like we just talked about. So Squarespace is very affordable. And if you were comparing it to something like WordPress or Wix, Squarespace is a little bit more expensive than Wix, less expensive than WordPress, and in general, it's going to be less expensive than WordPress because you don't have to have someone manage it and have someone on call to manage that site. Next, the help desk. So one of the biggest things that I look for in software is if they have a help desk feature that I can use a chat with, or at the very least, if they're responsive. So nothing is worse than sending in a request to a company and then not hearing back for 5 days. It's the worst because you're looking for help. If it's a day and a half, cool. But if it's, multiple days, it's very difficult to deal with. So Squarespace has a great chat, and I believe the hours are great. I think it's 4 a.m. to, midnight EST. So that's pretty good for a chat to be open. So Squarespace chat is wonderful. They help you with most problems right on the chat. And then if you use their Squarespace help desk, if you will, you can find most answers to things there. So I actually love the Squarespace help desk as well because most answers can be, answered in that help desk without contacting anyone. So people that I work with oftentimes will use that in the chat and they'll be able to get through most things. Once again, if something ends up becoming more complicated and they can't figure it out, then, I can always help them in that way. But the help desk is incredible. The other thing that I love about Squarespace is that they are always updating things and they're always giving us more features. It's one of those platforms where you'll log in and you'll be editing your website and be like, oh my God, this feature is new. This is the coolest. And it's one of those things that you don't think you need, but you're so appreciative of because they will take whatever people ask for and make it happen. So stuff that I used to have to code for in the websites that I built in 2020, I no longer have to code for because they saw what people were coding for, especially like us Squarespace Circle members. They see what people are coding for, and then they make the feature in the back end via their coders, of course, so they build it into the platform, and then you no longer have to code for it. So what that means is that once again, we go right back to that user friendliness. You can make a lot of really cool stuff happen with zero tech knowledge, and it is the best because it gives you those drop-down menus. It gives you the pretty image with the text next to it. You're allowed to put, it's like Canva, you can put an image and then a text on top. It's honestly the best because you can always count on Squarespace putting money into making things better. And that's a huge value of mine. If you're giving back to your business and putting more money into your business to make the service better, that is huge. So Squarespace always is doing that. And I cannot even count the number of updates they've done in this past 2 years. This year alone has been wild. So they're always updating the platform and it's been amazing. And lastly, one of the best things about Squarespace, and it happened this year, and it's for a lot of my overseas folks, if you need a website, or even my Canadian folks, I had a couple people there too. If you need a website that needs to be in multiple languages, Squarespace has a built-in language conversion now. So you can actually, it links up with this language conversion software. For the life of me, I cannot remember what it is off the top of my head. Weglot, I think it's called. And if you need your website in Spanish, if you need your website in French, you can actually just connect Weglot and it will have a little button at the top of your website. And your user, if someone goes to your website, can click that and it will change the whole language of the whole site. How cool is that? And it doesn't cost money. It's like the coolest thing that they added because a lot of people were like, I need a website that's in a different language. And what they used to have to do is build 2 sites. You had to build two sites. There's no way around it. Now, or you could use the plugin, the Weglot plugin, and pay a ton of money for it. But Squarespace is now including that, which is just awesome. It's making it so much more accessible to everyone who needs it to be in 2 languages. Because if you're in a country where you need to be able to speak to more than one, population, it's super, super beneficial. So that's kind of like my breakdown of why Squarespace, with the user friendliness and customization being definitely on the top of the list. I put a lot of emphasis on that because I really think it's important for people to be in control of their shit. Like, I don't want you to feel beholden to any website development company, myself or otherwise. But let's talk about what you should not use Squarespace for. There are features within Squarespace that do these things, but as in my professional opinion, do not use Squarespace for the things that I'm about to talk about. One is courses. Do not put a module-based course on Squarespace. It's not great functionality-wise. It doesn't look good. It's not built to be a course platform, at least not yet. So at the time of this episode, in early 2023, Squarespace is not built for module-based courses. So please do not host a course there. I'll do an episode on courses, but Kajabi is always going to be your best bet. I would also not do or use Squarespace for membership sites. So Squarespace has member areas. So you can put a paywall up. People can sign up for a membership access. If you're looking for a true membership site where you have modules and you have different, pages for different types of exercises or a video library, Squarespace just does not have that ability to make it look good. I love Squarespace's website platform. I do. But when it comes down to taking those pages that you design on your website and putting them behind a paywall, cool. If you have one page on your website that's behind a paywall and you design that yourself and you use Squarespace member areas, and it's really like you're building out the pages there and your videos are hosted there, it can work. It can. I just don't love the look of it. So it's just not my favorite. If I do a membership site, I definitely would go through Kajabi once again because it's just easier. You're not going to have the functionality, the full functionality. I know plenty of people who have built out membership sites through Squarespace member areas and they like it. So if you decide to do a membership site through Squarespace, I would just make sure you understand what that entails. all it is you're designing an entire website that's going to be hosted behind a paywall. And you say, these specific pages are hosted behind a paywall, which means you're then designing all of those pages. So just keep that in mind. It's not something where you can just, if you will, set up a course and put it behind a paywall and call it a day. You're going to have to design each single page. And I just don't think that it has the functionality that other membership platforms have. And I would not choose it over something like Circle is a great one. I wouldn't choose it over Kajabi. I probably would actually use a plugin called MemberPress before I did Squarespace member areas. But all that to say, if you're going to be hosting like a video library, which a lot of people I work with do, or a course, or just a module-based membership site, I do not think Squarespace is the best bet for that, at least not right now. Squarespace also has email marketing. I don't recommend it. So Squarespace's email marketing platform is nowhere near as good as something like ConvertKit. You can't really tag people. You don't really get the statistics that you need. And quite frankly, it's just much more low level than something like ConvertKit. And if you're going to do anything and you need email marketing, starting with ConvertKit can literally cost you $0. So in my opinion, if you're going to be using email marketing, start with the best software. Squarespace is built for websites. It's not built for email marketing. Do they have wonderful templates? Yes. Can they get the job done? Yes. I just believe that if you're going to start doing something and you're going to start with email marketing, you might as well start with the best software. Go with ConvertKit. Next is large online stores. Squarespace has great e-commerce. Don't get me wrong. I host things on my Squarespace site and sell them on my Squarespace site. But if I had a clothing store, or if I had a large company that is selling a lot of merch, and that's like my main goal of my website, I would not host it on Squarespace. Something like Shopify, WordPress sometimes, but there's a Shopify integration there. So really it's just Shopify is a much better option for a store-based site. So if you have a store-based site, please don't use Squarespace for that. You can if it's a small store, like 5 t-shirts, 6 t-shirts. But if your main goal of your site is to sell merch and that's all you do, I don't recommend you do that on Squarespace. So that is my Squarespace breakdown. I feel like I've been asked that a lot, so I wanted to put it all into one place. So let's break down exactly what we talked about, the good stuff and why I love Squarespace over other platforms, and then stuff that I would not use Squarespace for. So the good stuff. It's user-friendly. We have built-in security and SEO settings, which is wonderful. That means we have better, or less, if you will, chance of getting hacked. Who wants to get hacked? No one wants to get hacked. Squarespace also integrates well with scheduling software and email marketing, especially if you choose the ones that I'm talking about now, Acuity or Squarespace Scheduling and ConvertKit. Squarespace is super customizable, it's super affordable, and the help desk and chat is amazing. They are also always giving us good updates and feature improvements, feature ads, all the things. And there's now a language integration that allows you to have a website that is in 2 or 3 or 4 languages if you so please. What you should not use Squarespace for, in my opinion, is courses, membership sites, email marketing. Don't use Squarespace email marketing, and large online stores that are functioning just to be those online store platforms. So hope that gave you a little bit of insight into why Squarespace over other platforms. And if you have questions about that, or you're looking to buy, if you're looking to invest in a website or start a new website, or you're on one of those other platforms and you want to move to Squarespace, always possible. You're never stuck where you are. It just depends on how much work or investment you're willing to put in. So if you have questions, please let me know. And with that, I will say thank you so much again for being here. I'll catch you next time.